Hello everyone, my name is Marquette Gilchrist. For this assignment I will be talking about the identity negotiation theory. It's a theory that talks about the identities with others. People are always engaging in social interactions and participating in the identification process, in which they interact with others to gain self-verification or self-knowledge through the reaction of others. This process of social interactions and identification of one identity is called the identity negotiation theory. When others' reaction to one's attitude or behaviors are acceptable, then that individual develops a self-concept answering the question, who are you? But if that individual disagrees with the reaction of others, then he or she may become uncertain about their identity. When one is uncertain about their identity, then it can cause a disruption in personal relationships such as marriages, or they can develop poor self-esteem or negatively affect an organization culture. The identification process is one, or the theory is one of the commutative theories that improves the social dynamics in any setting, which every person is conscious of their personal identity and organizational identity. Many scholars have become aware that little research studies have been conducted on the continued changes of their organization culture that are impacted from personal identities and organization identities. For example, according to Dr. Myers, K. Myers, millennials born between 1979 and 1994 are unique individuals that many speculation has been made about millennials' abilities to create functional relationship with older employees in the workplace. Due to the millennials' work identity is a multi-dimensional and multi-layered that provides a social a social representation of how individuals interact with their employment environment. As a result, these are assumptions that many millennials and baby boomers have conflicting work identities because of their difference in personal identities and organization identities. Through the identity negotiation theory, organizations can examine these personal identities and organization identities that would create a identity congruency that would benefit the organization culture. The research question that few scholars have answered is, how does the negotiation theory explore the strategies for identity congruency? However, Adams and Crawford have attempted to develop strategies that have shown exploration of personal and organization identities that improves organization culture. The nature of identity negotiation. The identity negotiation theory derived from the theory of symbiotic interactions, which was developed by Cooley and Mead. They were behaviorists that studied the roles of social environment shaping an individual personality. Social interaction showed that personality was constructed through social interaction with individuals that will seek their identity through the reaction of others. Later, Goffman borrowed the idea of symbiotic interactions and expanded on its research. Goffman asserted that the first business in social interaction is establishing a working consensus or agreement regarding the roles each person would assume. Following Goffman, the idea related to identity negotiation was introduced by Secor and Bachman, and it was expanded by Swan. Finally, Dr. Swan developed the term identity negotiation, referring to the process of reconciling two competing forces in social interactions. The two competing forces were called the target and the perceiver. which the perceiver makes behavior expectation to sway the target to deliver behavior confirmation for the perceiver's expectation. And in exchange, the target will convince the perceiver to treat him or her in a way that delivers validation for the target's self-view or identity. During social interaction between the target and the perceiver, a conflict of self-validation occurs with both parties competing to persuade each other to comprehend their perspective or social reality. The process of identity negotiation involves the social interactions that will follow an interactive approach that views behavior as a communication of person and situations. According to Swan, this approach is exemplified in the merger of self-verification theory and the symbiotic interaction theory and the expectancy theory approach. Now, the self-verification theory consists of individual identities, of collaboration of social partners, and the social environment which they pursue relationship goals. Now, the symbiotic interactions and expectancy theory, individual identities consist of reactions of social partners that influence themselves. In understanding individual identities, they engage in social interactions at many different social environments, such as church, schools, social clubs, and even work. Next, I want to give you a biblical understanding of the identity negotiation process. Earlier I mentioned about the identification process of what we interact with others to gain self-verification or self-knowledge through the reaction of others. I would like to refer to in Colossians, that was written by Paul to the Colossians, and he wrote, "Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, do you also appear with him in glory." So what does that mean? And I'm asking, how does it relate to the identity negotiation theory? And I like to say that just as our old nature comes through identification with Adam, our new nature comes through identification with Christ. By placing our faith in Christ, God negotiated or exchanged our old nature for the atonement of Jesus Christ. This new identity in Christ is the result of his substitutionary death. Therefore, our new nature or identity has been changed, which has impacted our pursuits or social interaction with others. As we learn, the identity negotiation theory can be very useful. It's a theory of self-verification and behavior confirmation. It has been used in a lot of business, especially the business between the older workers, such as baby boomers, and the new workers today, the millennials. And many businesses are using this theory to create a perfect or a better work relationship between the two different generations, and it's very useful today also. I would like to thank everyone for listening to my theory, and I hope everyone have a good understanding of it, and have a good day. Thank you.